All Blacks 71, Namibia 3. I think it's something that we kind of expected. I do think the All Blacks took a while to get to show kind of or flex their muscles and show their dominance. A lot of scrap, a little bit stop start. I mean, the weather didn't help much. What were your first thoughts on it?
Look, mate, I'm not going to lie. When the game started, the sequence of plays leading up to that first try, Namibia didn't even touch the ball, and
Yeah,
it was just so smooth. And then they scored that try, and I was like, wow, this is going to be an absolute blowout. And you're right, it sort of slowed down a bit. That rain, I mean, I haven't seen rain like it, mate. And I'm from
no,
England, like it was really belting down. Again, with the new with the new sort of balls and technology, it probably would have somewhat made the ball grippy as well. I saw a few players lose it in contact, but New Zealand did take a while after that to sort of get into their groove, whether it be weather or not. But still super impressive, mate. You know, like they had a pretty strong side out as well. But yeah, I did probably expect a little bit more from New Zealand in those early stages.
yeah, for sure. I thought so as well. The I know the weather comes into it, and then when you're playing these sorts of games, you see lots of space. You try and do something you wouldn't usually do
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
game. You kind of go away from your structure of playing. So there was a little bit of that where you're kind of throwing the ball around a little bit more. Um, but like
yeah.
if anything's to go by from this World Cup, playing these minnow teams, you can't kind of go away from your structure. I mean, we saw with France and Uruguay. France almost got outdone. I mean, the All
Mm.
Blacks, they ended up smoking Namibia. But at the start, it could have gone a little bit messy. And, Namibia, like, they did well to get it through phases together, I thought.
It's mate. I said that I thought the same thing and wrote it down because it's like when you play against these low nation teams that you are guaranteed to win against. Is it their mindset going in? I'm not saying New Zealand's mindset was not good or
Yeah.
incorrect, but again, you want to score tries and they're going to be putting 50 plus on them. You do see extra spaces that at that level you probably wouldn't normally see. So you got to take that into consideration as well. But I think that to as a whole, New Zealand in those conditions. I mean, it did blow out towards the end. It didn't look too bad with like 20
No.
minutes to go, to be honest, like considering. But yeah, it was it would have been a challenge for New Zealand in terms of the real temptation to get those offloads
Yeah.
away or do things they wouldn't normally do, which is completely against their structure. So, but
Absolutely.
no, Namibia were decent as well at times. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, New Zealand were strong as expected, and yeah, I sort of feel for some of those players who who in those moments just want to show everyone what they can do and their full ability, but have to rein it in because they're playing part of a team.
Yeah, for sure. I did see, like, I did notice, and I do think because Namibia, All Blacks standard will be so high, there'd be a lot of things that they take out of that game where, like, fuck, man, we need to be better at that. And just
Yeah,
their basics, I think carrying ball into contact and like passes out in front, just the little basics that All Blacks have always known to be really good at. That they kind
yeah.
of lacked at today. And I know the conditions, but you also don't want to be using that as an excuse because that can
Well,
happen
no,
in the semi-final or the final. You know what
exactly
I mean?
right. That's exactly right, mate. That can happen against the better teams as well. I have got to say though, at some stages their passing, their basic skills were on point as well. But
Yep.
like you said, there were points where they were losing ball in contact. And again, if you do that in a semi or quarter final, I was listening to Scott Berger actually
Yep.
a few days ago, and he was saying that the hardest game of the World Cup is normally the quarter final because it's sort of like the first game of finals, finals rugby at a World Cup. So you do that against a strong teammate, they're probably going to punish you. So yeah, they definitely would have taken confidence, but also probably learned a lot from that game as well. And full credit to Namibia for putting up a decent fight for the majority of that game as well.
For sure. I thought I just saw you see Cam Roygard got man of the match, the number 9. And
Yeah,
we talk about New Zealand always having like wingers that come up or centers or what, like Aaron Smith has been the 9 for so long, and there's always been questions around, like TJ Perinara has kind of been in
yep.
Aaron Smith's shadow for so long. They've tried other guys, but man, Roygard, I think just as one guy
Yeah.
goes on, that next one comes up, and he's a quality player, isn't he?
He's unreal. And I actually wrote down a few notes about him because he did catch my eye. He's obviously a bit bigger than Aaron Smith, but
Yep.
if you actually watch his technique, Aaron Smith is renowned for sort of the old cliche, throw your hands towards the target. He's executes his pass extremely well. And if you watch Roy Guard pass, you can tell that he's been mentored by
Yeah.
Aaron Smith in this environment, because although they're very different players, the technique when it comes to passing, he's a lot taller by the looks of it. His technique and throwing his hands, which a lot of scrum halves don't do. They've got their own sort of technique, but you can see he's just like this byproduct of Aaron Smith, and Aaron Smith has obviously mentored him in that way. It's great. And he's an unreal player. Now Smith is, you know, coming towards the end of his career. What a player to have in his place, like next level. So good for him.
And then obviously a big talking point, Ethan de Groot's yellow card got turned into a red card. Again, one of those things, like I said from the first review, anything around the head is just you're just gone. You're going.
It's funny, isn't it? You look at the difference between the Curry red card for England compared to the De Groot. Like straight away on that replay, I've gone, De Groot's, this isn't going to be yellow on review for red. This has got to be a straight red. He didn't wrap his arms. It was almost like a shoulder charge to the head. Initial contact to the head. Got yellow, which doesn't really matter. He's still going off the field, but it was never going to be a yellow. It was always going to be a red in my eyes. But you just compare the two different incidents and you go, you know, Curry wasn't a headbutt. It was just an unfortunate clash of heads. And then you compare that, and it's like, for me, not defending Curry or either or, but I feel like there should be some difference in those reds. I know that's probably hard to do, but like it's an unfortunate.
It should be, I get what you're saying, like a lower class red and a higher class red almost.
I mean, you can't shoulder charge. You've got to take into consideration, like players do fall when they're tackling, but there was no wrapping of the arms. It was contact head, whereas Curry just plays hard. Unfortunate head clash. Yep, you made contact with a head, it's going to be a red, but they're just two completely different reds. Do you know what I mean? So I mean, I don't know if they'll take that into consideration, but there was a big talking point. There was no need for it either. Like, absolutely no need for it. It's a bit silly from the group, but you know, everyone likes to put on a big shot.
You're obviously hoping no one goes to intentionally do that, but like split-second decisions, man. There's been some other games where similar things have happened too, like the Curry incident, and nothing has come from it. So it's just that consistency around that, and it's always going to be. World Cup, man.
It looks like De Groot is a big prop as well. He looks quite tall. And you know, the only person I can think of who was like that with me growing up was Andy Sheridan. I don't know if you remember the prop for England. Huge prop. It was like the first real prop that came onto the scene who was outside the normality of a old school prop, short, stocky. He was like 6'4" and just like a beast. So these props who want to put on big shots, they've just got to be careful. Big players in general, they just got to be careful with those sort of smaller guys or players falling, because everyone loves a big shot, right? You know what I mean? It's something we want to see, but you've just got to be extra careful, especially in the game that they play now.
Right now, that's it. Quickly touching on Namibia, I thought they did well anytime they did have the ball. Like they could set up a couple phases. Alistair Coetzee, their coach, will take a bit out of that game. Like it's a tough one, man. I don't think there's always at a World Cup going to be a shocker of a result, but I don't think Namibia were ever really going to win this one. I think they'll take little bits out of it. Obviously that guy broke his leg. Like that was very ugly. Rough. And I'm like, just quickly touching on the injuries, like throughout this World Cup, it's been crazy, isn't it?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, shout out to that player who broke his leg. I spotted it before. Like I saw it, and then I saw the replay, and I was like, shit, he's broken his leg. But again, I don't know. This is an uneducated opinion here, but you look at the way that sports science is going and training and weights training and, you know, all that sort of stuff. I used to play with a guy who was that muscular and that athletic. His muscles tightened up that much. And on the weekend, 9 times out of 10, honestly, he would pull up with a tight hamstring and it just makes you wonder these days, like with the amount of training they do and like the amount of gym work they do, does it contribute to injuries? I don't know. I mean, obviously you're going to get your bad ones, but it's just unfortunate. We touched on this prior to the World Cup. It's like, we just want to see the best players playing. And when you get the likes of these players getting injured and missing the rest of the World Cup prior and within the World Cup, it's just a bit gutting, to be honest, for them personally, but even as spectators and supporters, it's like, damn, we wanted to see that player play, you know? So absolutely. I do feel for him.
I think the Namibia-Uruguay game will be massive. Uruguay obviously taking France right to the end. So I think that will be there. That'll be quite a strong. Or the Uruguay-Italy game as well for that Pool A will be really, really good to watch. But like I said, not much for Namibia to take out of that.
I put down their number 7. I don't know his surname. It's Prince and go, Seb. I think maybe. You know, when you watch those games with a team that aren't as strong against a really strong team, if a player from the losing side sort of can stand out, you know, they've probably got something special there. And I thought he had a really good game. Like as a 7, obviously he's going to make his tackles, but he was just everywhere, just tried his heart out. You know, in other games, he would have got, you know, 10 turnovers, but today it just wasn't going to be against New Zealand.
Yeah.
But big shout out to him. He really, for me, just watching that game, he was a shining light for Namibia. But like you said, Uruguay, Namibia, Italy, like they're going to be quality games if they can get pumped up for it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, guys. That was the pretty. It was good to have you back, Mike.
I know,
thanks,
mate. I'm
guys.
sorry that last week.
Nah, that's fine. Everyone was worried sick, man. But you're back. So that was the.
I'm sure they were.
The review for the All Blacks Namibia game, 71-3 again. All Blacks dominant there, as we all kind of expected.
Yeah. Just before we go, mate, just a quick shout out to the ref, Luke Pierce. I noticed towards the end of the game, there was a bit of a, I don't know, he had to speak to the TMO and he deliberately sort of like pulled the mic up and spoke fluent French. And I'm thinking, what a flex. Yeah obviously nice. English ref, but I was like, you didn't just speak French, you deliberately was just like, straight off and like did it on purpose. I was like, lad, that's unreal. Lovely. That was great. So yeah, no, it was good, mate. A great game.
Lovely.